fortunate to be involved at the very beginning from the start of the MBA. Michael McCormack, God rest him, was the driver behind the development of the MBA back in the middle days of the last century.
At that stage, MBA was an American thing, and there was hardly any MBA in Europe. In fact, they tried to start an MBA in Manchester and had failed. They were struggling with an MBA in London. So when Michael said he was going to do an MBA in Dublin, people really didn't think it was going to work.
With great diligence and drive and enthusiasm and entrepreneurial skill, he managed to succeed, and the MBA was launched in 1964. I remember sitting in Michael's drawing room with about 150 applications for the first MBA. We could have taken the vast majority of them, but we only had 15 places. So it was a major selection procedure.
I was 32 when I started doing the MBA, but I had a lot of experience, and that class particularly, because it was the first class, all Irish, all male, I think pretty well all with families, young children and mortgages.
The building, I think, originally was designed for about 2,000, and at that stage it had 5,000 in it. The faculty operated out of one room, the whole faculty. We just shared a room. And we had one secretary who covered not just commerce, but arts as well.
We worked in groups, and that was hugely beneficial from me, because I would, having a marketing background, worked with 2 engineers and an accountant. And I bled them dry in terms of learning about everything to do with their skills in terms of numerical skills and accounting skills. They were incredibly good to me. I was the youngest of the group, and I really learned from them.
That became a kind of a norm for me afterwards. I liked working in groups.
Anytime you did a presentation, you had to make sure you were making the right point. And if you start to flannel and waffle, Michael had you for breakfast. I mean, he really did you.
He was a very stable, soft-spoken guy, but if he felt you weren't doing what you should be doing, we got dressed down a couple of times, and it was like a redemptress mission in the old days. There would be absolute silence and nobody would look at him, but he was absolutely fantastic.
Pat McCormack, Michael's widow, had an open house for the students, and that was a critical social part, and my wife May likewise. That was a critical part of the socializing dimension of the program, which was very important because of the pressure on the students.
Our first female on the MBA course was in the early 70s, and Sister Lucy Staines was the name of the lady. And anecdotally, I've heard that in the interview process, which was obviously an all-male panel, they asked her, why would she want to study an MBA? And I believe her answer was along the lines of, if you've opened X number of hospitals in Africa and coordinated a large number of activities in such a continent, you too would need the understanding of how to generally manage, or general management and business administration.
I was probably the second or third woman ever to do the MBA in UCD, but I didn't know that when I was embarking on it, of course. I just thought it was a business degree, and I came on the first day and found that there were 25 people in the class and I was the only woman. And I have to say, it never was an issue for me in any way. The guys in the class were extremely nice. They are my lifelong friends, I'm happy to say.
I enjoy teaching the MBA program, and one of the main reasons for that is the candidates are high caliber and they come with experience. So, one is dealing with, issues around real business challenges, but they bring a wealth of experience to the class. So the level of engagement, the level of debate, the level of criticism is really keeps you on edge.
You have a group of highly motivated people. You don't really ever have to ask, have they read the case? You assume they've read the case. The most wonderful situations when somebody from the company or who used to work for the company is in the class, and you make a point and they say, actually, that's not quite how it happened. Now, that creates a level of tension on your part before you enter the room. It creates a level of tension in the room, and it creates an enormous amount of reflection after the fact.
Because we had practical experience, we challenged a lot of what, was being said by the lecturers, but they were right rows.
And you don't get it in any other room. You don't get it with undergraduates, you don't get it with master's students. You only get it in the MBA classroom, and it's a tremendous privilege to be there and to enjoy that.
Full-time MBA was introduced in '91, so that really was the beginning of the internationalisation on the MBA programme. And currently we've about 70% international, and our target is 70 to 80%, so we're delighted to have achieved that target. In scholarships, we have a number of different types of scholarships, and we have scholarships for our full-time MBA programme and our executive MBA programme.
Clearly technology has taken over all our worlds, and so how we do our jobs, how we organise ourselves. So when you think about a Masters of Business Administration, an awful lot of administration work is done technically, is done digitally. It would be unfortunate if we lose touch with what the guys 50 years ago were learning on their MBAs, because their real skill was leadership. And I think the MBA must always remember that one of the key learnings coming from it is some tips on leadership and how to become a business leader.
I had no idea that the effects, that first of all, that the pressure of doing it, would be so great, but secondly, that it would make such a change in the way you saw the world and in terms of what you wanted to do.
After having done a technical degree like engineering, to immerse myself in this was absolutely brilliant. It was probably the best years concentrated study I'd ever done, and I'd look back on it now and say, it really was a marvellous experience.
Immediately when I finished the MBA, I went to London and I got a job with L'Oreal, the world's biggest beauty brand, working on their largest account in the UK on one of their major launches. So for me, it was an absolute springboard to something that I really don't think I could have achieved otherwise. It was a huge step change.
I became the founding CEO of FORFOS, which is the holding body for the industrial development agencies. I became the founding CEO of Science Foundation Ireland. And I became a director of many companies, both in the public and in the private sector in the years that followed. And I think none of that would have happened to the extent that it did without the knowledge and the body of information that I picked up while I was doing the MBA program back in 1975.
It was a risk taken on by the university at that time, and it was all bets are off if it doesn't work. And here we are today, 50 years later.
He was a wonderful individual. He was a great mentor to me, actually, as well. But he was a quintessential academic entrepreneur. There aren't too many of them, but he was the quintessential one as far as I was concerned.
It was the first MBA program that was established in Europe, and it has played a huge part, I think, in the development of the Irish economy from that time to the present.
The notion of university as we have it today has probably existed for 500 or 600 years. And like other institutions that last for a very long period of time, they do that by resisting to short-term change. So I think if Michael came to the university today with a similar innovation of the scale of the MBA, I think he would probably have less chance of it working today because it's so much more difficult to introduce change in a very complex, very structured and very tightly managed system. But the great entrepreneurs always find a way to get around these challenges and barriers, and I've no doubt that he would make it work. And in fact, it might be fun to see how he would actually do it.